In 2010, an octopus predicted the World Cup. Germany loved him. Then he predicted Germany would lose. And suddenly, people across the country were discussing how to cook him. His name was Paul. He was a 2-year-old octopus living in a small aquarium in an industrial German city. And what happened around his predictions, the death threats, the government intervention, the conspiracy, is so much weirder than most people remember. One of those predictions nearly got him killed. We'll get to that. If every match were a coin flip, the odds of getting all 8 right would be about 1 in 256. The streak was unusual enough to capture the world's attention. And some people would later claim the octopus making these predictions wasn't even Paul at all. But we'll get to that. But here's what this video is actually about, not the octopus. Millions of grown adults watched a sea creature choose between 2 snack boxes and concluded it could predict the future. That's not an animal story. That's a human story. And that is exactly why we are like this. Here's something almost nobody talks about. Paul wasn't German. He was born in Weymouth, England, and was shipped over to the Sea Life Aquarium in Oberhausen, Germany, where he eventually became a national hero, largely by predicting Germany's own defeats, which, honestly, makes it better. The Germans adopted a British octopus, celebrated him, made him famous, and the moment he turned on them, they wanted him in a frying pan. We'll come back to that. The setup was simple. Before each match, aquarium staff would lower 2 clear boxes into Paul's tank. Each box contained a mussel, his favorite food, and was decorated with the flag of one of the competing teams. Whichever box Paul opened first was his prediction. That's it. No algorithm, no data, no spreadsheet. Just an octopus and some mussels. Now, here's where it gets strange. Octopuses are believed to be largely colorblind. They likely see the world very differently from us. So if Paul couldn't clearly see the colors on those flags, what exactly was he choosing? The answer, when we get to the science, is stranger than you think. He got all 8 right. Germany versus Australia. Germany wins. Germany versus Serbia. Serbia wins. Paul picks Serbia, causing his own home crowd to lose their minds. Ghana, England, Argentina. 5 from 5. Correct every time. By the quarterfinal, when Paul predicted Germany would beat Argentina, one Argentine newspaper published a recipe for cooking him. 4 potatoes, olive oil, a little pepper. An entire country not angry at their team, angry at a mollusk, because he saw something they didn't want to be true. Most people remember Paul predicting the semifinal and the final. What they forget is that he also correctly predicted Germany's 3rd-place match against Uruguay. 7 Germany matches, plus the Spain-Netherlands final. 8 predictions total, 8 correct. Then came the semi-final prediction, Germany versus Spain. This was broadcast live on national German television. A crowd gathered at the aquarium. Cameras were rolling. And when Paul crawled toward the Spanish box and opened it, the crowd gasped. Germany lost to Spain the next day. Then Paul correctly predicted Spain over the Netherlands in the final. And then, Germany turned on him. What happened next was genuinely unhinged. A German tabloid called Berliner Kurier ran the headline, "Throw him in the frying pan." Germans flooded Twitter with calamari recipes, with death threats, for an octopus. And this is where humans become humans. The moment Paul was helping Germany win, he was a genius, a prophet, a national treasure. The moment he predicted Germany would lose, he became dinner. That's not the octopus, that's us. We celebrate the oracle right up until the oracle says something we don't want to hear. Here's a question worth sitting with. Did Paul become less accurate the moment he predicted Germany's loss? No, his record was still perfect, but our relationship with him changed the second he stopped telling us what we wanted. Then, Spain's industry minister, a government minister, a real person with an actual job, personally offered Paul immediate political asylum and state protection. For an octopus. A Spanish government official went on record to say that Paul would be safe in Spain. Then, Iran's president Mahmoud Ahmadinejad got involved and publicly declared that Paul was a symbol of Western propaganda and superstition. So at this point, we have an octopus who has triggered an international diplomatic situation, multiple death threats, and a response from a sitting head of state. Somewhere in Oberhausen, a security guard stood in front of a fish tank and told himself this was a normal Tuesday. That is the world Paul created. Not because Paul did anything remarkable, because we decided he had. Remember at the beginning, I mentioned that some people would claim the octopus making these predictions wasn't even Paul at all? Here's that story. A Chinese filmmaker publicly claimed that Paul had actually died on July 9th, days before the World Cup final, and that a body double had been placed in his tank. She told The Guardian directly, "The Germans have been covering up his death and fooling us for a long time." There is no evidence this is true, but there is also no hard evidence it isn't. The aquarium never opened a formal investigation into whether their octopus was their octopus. Could the aquarium have covered this up? Probably not. But here's the more interesting question. Why did so many people immediately believe it? Because we had invested so much meaning in this animal that we couldn't accept a normal ending. Paul had to either be immortal or murdered and replaced. A natural death at 2.5 was too ordinary for the legend we had built. So we invented a better story. And there's one more detail that makes you think. A supervisor at the Oberhausen Aquarium told Brazilian media that Paul was not even the same octopus who had predicted the Euro 2008 tournament, that he wasn't born until after that tournament ended. Paul's origin story was already murky before anyone started asking harder questions. Notice what we're doing right now. We're desperately searching for a scientific explanation for Paul, because humans hate mysteries. We would rather believe an impossible explanation than sit with, "We don't know." That instinct, the need for certainty, is part of the same wiring that made millions of people trust an octopus in the first place. Scientists have proposed a few possible explanations. None are fully satisfying, which somehow makes this stranger. Germany's leading octopus researcher, a man named Volker Miske, suggested that Paul might have been influenced by the residual scent of mussels on the outside of the boxes. That staff handling the boxes may have left traces of scent that Paul could detect, which would mean he wasn't predicting the future, he was smelling it. But wait, because the biology gets even weirder. Paul had 9 brains, 1 central brain and 8 smaller ones, 1 in each arm. 2/3 of his entire nervous system lived in his arms, not in his head. His arms could make decisions completely independently of his central brain. So when Paul chose a box, it's genuinely unclear which part of him was doing the choosing. He also had 3 hearts and blue blood. His body used copper instead of iron to carry oxygen. He could detect polarized light, a form of light that humans cannot see at all. And his skin contained the same light-sensitive protein found in eyes, meaning his entire body surface could detect light independently of his brain. Paul was, in a very real sense, one of the most alien creatures ever to become a global celebrity. We still don't fully understand what some of these senses feel like from the inside. And here's the honest question. Was Paul just lucky? Mathematicians have pointed out that when enough animals and predictors are all making forecasts, eventually one will look extraordinary by pure chance. Maybe that was Paul. Maybe it wasn't. We genuinely don't know. Paul died on October 26, 2010, 3 months after the World Cup final, of natural causes. Octopuses rarely live beyond 2 years, and Paul had lived a full life. Der Spiegel, Germany's most prestigious news magazine, the publication that covers wars and elections and economic crises, ran a full-length, serious obituary. The Oberhausen Aquarium built a memorial with a golden urn containing his ashes. After he died, zoos and aquariums all over the world rushed to introduce their own psychic animal predictors: a crocodile in Australia, a parrot in New Zealand, an elephant in Europe. None of them came close to his record, because whatever Paul was doing, whether it was scent or polarized light or 9 brains processing information we don't fully understand, or just pure statistical luck, nobody has been able to replicate it. The strangest part of this story was never the octopus. It was us. Millions of grown adults watched a sea creature choose between two snack boxes and concluded it could predict the future. When he confirmed what we hoped, we loved him. When he contradicted us, we wanted him cooked. When he died, we built him a tomb. Not because of what Paul did, because of what we needed him to be. That's not an animal story. That's a human story. And that is exactly why we are like this. If you want more videos like this, deep dives into stories that sound made up but are completely real, subscribing actually helps more than most people realize.